Hi, I'm Femi OK. You're watching the stream. If you are a regular viewer of this program or Al Jazeera as a network, you know that we continue to go back to the story of the Rohingya, many refugees who are in the southern part of Bangladesh. Now, today is no exception. Just over a week ago, a cyclone went past this largest settlement in the world, refugee settlement in the world, and that was a near miss. And then the week before that, we heard that COVID-19 had come into the Rohingya refugee settlements. So the question is, could this be the beginning of a catastrophe for the Rohingya in southern Bangladesh? If you're already on YouTube, we invite your opinion, your take, your experiences. We'd love to hear from you, and you too can be in the stream. I'm going to introduce you to the guests who will introduce themselves to you. Hello, Louise. It's great to have you on the stream. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, thanks. My name is Louise Donovan. I'm the UNHCR spokesperson in Bangladesh, and I'm based in Cox's Bazar town.
Good to see you. Mr. HOSSAIN, welcome to the stream. Tell everybody who you are.
Hello, I am DELWAR HOSSAIN, Director General, Myanmar Wing, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you for being in our discussion. Hello, Toon. Welcome to the stream. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Toon Khin. I am President of Burmese Rohingya Organization in UK. I am a Rohingya and born and brought up in Arkhana State, western part of Burma.
And Mohammed, almost needs no introduction. Welcome back to the stream.
Thanks, Femi. I'm Mohammed JAMJOOM. I'm a senior correspondent for Al Jazeera English, and I've covered the story of the plight of the Rohingya extensively for the network.
Mohammed, I have to tell you, we were planning episodes of the stream, and we're doing it quite long term because we're on lockdown here in Washington, DC, where we make the stream. So we have to do some forward planning. And then we saw an Instagram post from yourself, which I'm going to show our audience here, which actually meant that we took away some of the things that we were going to do. We pushed them back, and we thought we have to talk about this. This was the headline. Reports of the first confirmed coronavirus case in the Rohingya refugee camps is a major cause for concern. That stopped us in our tracks. What are you hearing from all of the sources? Because you've been reporting on the Rohingya for many years now.
Well, Femi, all the refugees who I've been speaking with the past few months, they've been so traumatized as it is, and they were terrified of the prospect that the coronavirus, the COVID-19, would be entering the camps. And they were doing everything they could to try to prevent the spread, but they understood that it was a reality that they weren't going to be able to escape. So it was a matter of when and not if. I, of course, was checking every few days with refugees on the ground, with folks like Louise Donovan, who's on our panel today, with UNHCR, with other aid workers there about reports that were coming out from Cox's Bazar. And, it was terrible news. I mean, this is a population that is one of the most persecuted minorities in the world. They have experienced unfathomable violence. They have had the kind of atrocities committed against them that you'd be hard-pressed to believe, even when you hear about them in person from the people they were committed against. And now they have this threat unlike any other threat that they faced before, COVID-19. And at a time when, the internet has been shut down in and around the camps in Cox's Bazar since last September, I believe, largely shut down, I should say. It does come back from time to time. That just scared them more, because they wondered how they were going to get the correct kind of information to try to combat the spread of the disease. They wondered how they were going to contact relatives, both inside the camps and also relatives back in Myanmar. And they wanted to try to get the world's attention as far as the kind of threat that they're facing, and let people know how scared they are of what kind of a toll this could take on their population.
Mr. HOSSAIN, I know that Bangladesh was getting ready for COVID-19. What about the refugee settlements? What did you put in place knowing that COVID-19 was probably going to happen amongst a community that live very close together?
Yeah, actually, I would like to begin with the word or expression that you commenced this program. That is it the beginning of a catastrophe? You have referred to cyclone and COVID infection. I personally feel that unless and until these people go back to their homeland in safety and dignity, the risk will always remain there. And we should better seek the durable solution and better not to shift our focus from there. But since the COVID case has already been detected in the camp, unfortunately, I would also like to embark on this issue. Actually, the government of Bangladesh is fully aware of the high risk of COVID transmission in the congested Rohingya camp. And accordingly, the government acted in a timely manner and scaled up engagement with UN agencies.
Mr. Hossain, may I just interrupt you? I know this is very important that you get this information over, but I believe you're reading a statement and this is a live conversation. So I'm going to ask you, just very simply, can you just tell us, without referring to your notes, what was the biggest challenge that you had to address in the refugee camps, without reading your notes?
Our main prime concern was to stop COVID outbreak in the camp. But we also knew that it is a matter of time. So we took sufficient precautionary measure, but unfortunately we could not stop it. So now we are intervening in medical treatment aspect, and also we are still focusing on isolation and all those preventive aspects. And maybe our colleague from UN, she would be able to give more details on what we are actually doing there. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Louise, I'm just looking here at the UNHCR. This is something that you put out in your feed and your social media outreach. UNHCR in Bangladesh. This was the first in Cox's Bazar, and you've got beds here. There's also one of the first testing labs in Bangladesh. We learned from a show that we did quite recently was actually in Cox's Bazar. So here are the preparations and preparations before we heard about this first outbreak. But here is one of the most recent headlines that we're actually sharing here on aljazeera.com. 15,000 Rohingya under quarantine as coronavirus cases rise. You're really close to Cox's Bazar. What's going on?
Yeah, thank you. As you mentioned, the tweet was referring to the inauguration of the first two SARI ITCs. So these are severe acute respiratory infection, isolation and treatment facilities. The entire humanitarian community in support of the government is working to establish 12 of these centres that will be used to treat patients, both Rohingya refugees and local Bangladeshi population who are showing mild to severe symptoms. So we have opened the doors of the first centres, and thankfully just after the first cases were confirmed in the refugee camps. We have been working around the clock for the past 3 months to make sure that these centres can be opened in time. Obviously, we're very concerned, refugees are very concerned that the numbers are going to increase quickly given the high population density within the camps, but the work on treatment facilities, training, the distribution of PPE to help frontline health workers is going on round the clock. You mentioned about additional quarantine within the camps. There are additional measures ongoing in terms of messaging, just particularly in areas where there are clusters of cases, just for people to be more aware and to minimize their movements within the camps. But in terms of quarantine, at the moment, there are just over 100 people who are actually contacts of confirmed cases who are in quarantine centres and will be tested.
This is a good question about social distancing. Yes, go ahead. Who said
can I respond? Can I respond to a comment of Mr. JAMJOOM?
Absolutely. Mr. Hossain, you go first, and then Mohammed, you pick up right at the end. Go ahead, Mr. Hossain.
Yeah, actually, he mentioned that the internet facility is cut in the Rohingya camp. Actually, this is not true. The internet facility and telecommunication network is still there, and it is good enough for communication. And the Rohingya people staying at the camp, they are connected inside the camp and also outside the camp, even abroad. What we have done, based on genuine security concerns.
Mr. Hossain, can I just double check that? Toon, are you hearing from friends, family, colleagues who are in the Rohingya settlements? Are you hearing that they've got an internet connection, Toon?
No, I didn't hear that.
Right. Mohammed?
Femi, I can just say that the refugees who I'm in contact with as much as I can be, as I said before, the internet is largely shut down. It comes and goes. There are times it'll be on for a few days, but most of the time, what I hear from the refugees who try to connect online, a lot of times they will trek up hillsides and they will try to get a 2G signal, and that is the way that they will communicate with the outside world. If I could also pose a question to Mr. Hossain, since he was addressing this, there have been a lot of rights groups that have been critical of Bangladesh because of what they call an internet shutdown. And I wanted to ask, why is the situation as it is in those camps? Is there any thought put to perhaps restoring it at a time when the government is facing increased criticism for that?
Yeah, actually, security is the highest priority for us. We need to protect the innocent Rohingya and also the host community as well. So what we feel, unless an effective mechanism is found out to effectively protect the innocent people, this situation should prevail. And also, we are not very much sure how many Rohingya were actually using high-speed internet and what type of benefit they were deriving from internet. That is also not sure. But at this critical juncture, there are many misinformation and rumor also on COVID. So it is really a very big challenge to pick the right content from the sea of information.
Mr. Hossain, this is why we're delighted that you're with us. We really appreciate that. Toon, is there anything that you would like to ask Mr. Hossain regarding the Rohingya, the settlements where they are right now?
For me, as a Rohingya myself, Bangladesh government and the people of Bangladesh have given us a shelter where we were fleeing from genocide. We will never forget it. It is, Bangladesh government, they are facing with a heavy population, and they're giving us a shelter. And, we appreciate the hospitality and generosity to the Rohingya people. But as we are facing many, this year we have seen, we are currently facing COVID-19. We were lucky, we saved from Amphan, Cyclone, and, there are many others we are facing. But Bangladesh government this time, they should consider this COVID-19 is really important to get the information out and into allowing Rohingya genocide survivors to to have it. Internet is very important. Without that,
I think we've addressed that in a way that Mr. Hossain feels that there's enough bandwidth out there, and obviously the refugees feeling that's not their perspective, that they're having trouble using the internet. The reason why this is so important is because how are we learning about COVID-19? How do we keep ourselves safe? How do we protect each other? A lot of that information is disseminated online. Louise, let me bring you in here. A couple of questions from Twitter for you. Mark Dryber says it's really difficult to social distance effectively and provide sanitation, especially disposal of wastewater, etc. Soap and potable water to residents in refugee camps in sufficient supplies is always hard to do. And then another just here from Noor Hussain, who's a journalist who's working in Cox's Bazar. He said that a lot of people in the markets right now, they were doing Eid shopping, no social distances. Do people have enough information about COVID-19, Louise? Let me just scoot up here so everybody can see. This is not 6 feet. This is not. This is a party, Louise.
Okay. Yeah, I think just referring to the first question about hygiene promotion, access to soap, access to potable water, we have, as I said, been working with government and all the humanitarian community to increase soap distributions since March, and also we've established more than 8,000 hand washing facilities all around the camps. Our activities have been reduced to critical life-saving activities in an effort to balance public health imperatives, so to reduce the number of humanitarian workers going into the camps. So we have been able to continue with soap distributions and with high motion. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is one of the most densely populated refugee camps in the world. We have more than 40,000 people living per square kilometre. So social distancing is very, very challenging. We have established practices at all distribution points, so places where refugees go, for example, to collect food rations or other distributions. However, in day-to-day life, it is challenging. I think that at this point, I'd like to highlight the efforts that refugees themselves have been making to spread information and raise awareness in their own communities. We have huge networks of refugee volunteers who've been going door to door, spreading messages, who've been developing posters, who've been spreading messages through microphones, through mosques. And I think that this has had a very positive impact. They've really mobilized and shown how important it is to protect their communities. But of course, in such a densely populated area, it's very challenging.
Mohammed, I saw you nodding your head. You were talking about the efforts the refugees were making themselves. Mohammed, you go first. Mr. Hossain, you pick up off the back.
I would just say, Femi, that, yeah, I would concur with what Louise was saying. I mean, one of the things I've been trying to do the past couple of months is showcase in some of the reporting I'm doing, even though I'm not there on the ground, what refugees are doing, how the community is coming together despite all the obstacles to try to find solutions, to try to prevent the spread of COVID-19. You had youth activists in the camps that were putting on seminars, showing people how to properly wash their hands. You have videographers that are there that are putting together films showing children how to practice social distancing. You have others who are writing songs about how to stop the spread of COVID-19. So, you know, when you factor in just how much the Rohingya have been through, when you see that kind of resilience, it really is, it's just awe-inspiring.
Mr. Hossain, may I come back to you via this headline from Human Rights Watch, if I may? Bangladesh COVID-19 aid limits imperil the Rohingya. I believe that there's a limited number of NGOs that you're allowing into Cox's Bazar. Can you clarify that for me? Human Rights Watch is saying that the reduction of NGO helpers is not going to be a good thing at this time.
Actually, that is based on misperception. What we have done in order to impose restriction and sort of lockdown in Rohingya camp, we have actually imposed restriction on non-emergency activities in the camp. But what we have done at the same time, we have made sure that critical humanitarian assistance continue unimpeded. This is why some people, they are outside of the activities, while the critical services are still in place. So this is the reality, actually.
I want to bring
also, I would like to, and also I would like to respond to Mr. Keen's request to reintroduce internet in this COVID period. I don't know why he has made this request, but I understand he's asking it for the propagation of information among the Rohingya community. But personally, I don't feel that internet is not an effective tool, targeted instant community messaging. Rather, we have already some proven the mechanism and means for targeted community messaging. What we have been using.
So Mr. Hossain, you're going back to reading again, which again I'm going to push you not to. I know that you want to get those facts out there, but let me put this to you. This is from a a tweet and a handle that's called Protect the Rohingya, so you obviously know the perspective here. The greatest challenge in preventing and managing the outbreak is the internet blackout that Bangladesh has imposed on the Rohingya camps since 2019, September of 2019. There is pushback, Mr. Hossain. I'm going to leave it there, unless you want to make a commitment to the Rohingya in the resettlement camps that you can turn the internet on today. You could actually turn it on today. Correct?
No, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we have taken that measure. We have only temporarily downgraded internet. Purely on genuine security. So you can put it, you can actually increase the speeds. You could do it whenever you wanted to. Why wouldn't you do it? Let's do it. It's quite late right now, but you could do it tomorrow. It could be this week. Why would the internet not come back, knowing the dire circumstances? No, but you tell me, as I already explained, what is the use of internet in propagation of targeted initiatives?
Mr. Hossain, we heard you earlier, so we're going round a little bit in circles. I hear you. Rohingya will disagree with you. All right, let me just bring in SHAHAB UDDIN, who arrived quite recently in Cox's Bazar. I know, Mohammed, you've been reporting for so long on the situation in Myanmar, situation in Cox's Bazar, where the Rohingya refugees are based right now. And this is an experience that SHAHAB went through to get to Cox's Bazar. Just want to remind everybody what's going on.
We were 510 in total on the boat, including kids. We ran out of food within 5 days after we sailed off. We survived by drinking salty water. The traffickers gave us one piece of biscuit and a few drops of water sometimes. We didn't get any food for many days. Women and young people were starting to die from the lack of food.
Mohammed, why are we still reporting on this crisis that gets worse every time we come back and do an update? What's gone wrong with the way the international community operates? What are we not doing right with our journalism? How are people reacting to it? How would you analyse why we continue to have to come back to Rohingya crisis?
I mean, it's a great question, and I wish I had an answer because, quite frankly, as a journalist, as a human being, I don't understand why the international community largely ignores the plight of the Rohingya. It keeps me awake at night at times. I don't get it. They've suffered so much. They're living in such dire circumstances. There have been so many testimonies given. You know, there's been so much reporting done. Yes, the story is largely uncovered, and I feel fortunate to work for a network that covers it pretty extensively. But the stories are out there. And in a time where you constantly hear about never again, that the world is never going to let something like this happen again, it keeps happening. Mm-hmm. And the Rohingya are still suffering. And what you just showed is a prime example. These are Rohingya that, depending on who you're hearing it from, have either left Myanmar or have tried to leave Bangladesh to get to Malaysia. And they pay smugglers, take them on these fishing trawlers. And starting in mid-April, there have been several boats that we've heard about from different groups that have been stuck with hundreds of Rohingya refugees on them out at sea. And, you know, there are some boats that have approached the coastline of Bangladesh that have been rescued by Bangladesh's Navy and allowed back into Bangladesh. But there are still apparently hundreds of Rohingya that were being trafficked on smuggling boats out there at sea, and they're being turned away by different countries. And it's appalling. It's shocking.
I want to wrap up with something that Shafur Rahman was doing, which is a photography competition from within the Rohingya settlement camp, so that he could help us connect with the people who are living there. I'm going to leave you with his comment and some of the pictures. Let's take a look.
Now, in the camps, there are lots of energetic young men and women who are effectively citizen journalists, only they are refugees, not citizens. So I thought this would be the perfect time to hold this competition and get these guys involved. What I hope the competition will do is amplify Rohingya voices. Photography can be a very powerful medium of communication. And given that we are cut off from them, there's a need for us to understand what is happening from the Rohingya themselves. I also hope this competition will result in a notebook of the times, a snapshot of Rohingya lives during this crisis, documented by themselves. It will let outsiders like us to get an idea of the impact of the persecution they faced in Myanmar and where that has put them now. So even with these lockdowns and social distancing, what photographs do is bring us together despite the distance and the barriers. And hopefully we can imagine and work for a better future.
Thank you, guests, for contributing to this very important edition of the stream. We really appreciate all of you. And also one comment here from YouTube, so valuable, from DONOVAN. For the Rohingya, what Bangladesh has done and has been doing is a unique case. No country in the world would be eager to do it. Thanks for watching this episode of the stream. I'll see you next time. Take care.